Welcome to the Catholic Audio Media Podcast, and thank you for being here. We're here every single Monday through Friday, and our program drops at midnight, and you can hear it, of course, anytime after that, ad infinitum, until Jesus comes back, or as long as Podbean's around. We're on Podbean, but we're also on many other platforms, including Amazon, iHeart, Spotify, and everything else. Apparently, we are not on Apple, and I know that's a big thing. Oh, Apple's big, but we're not. Apple, I'm not on Apple as far as I know right now. Not sure if I'm going to look to get on to Apple, because I don't own anything Apple. Nothing. Not the watch, not the phone, nothing. I did start using computers with a Macintosh, what was it called, a Performa? Many years ago, but then I left the Macintosh, the Apple platform, and have been on Windows ever since. I actually spoke to a friend of mine a long time ago who was a big Apple person to this day, and I had to break the news to him, and literally what I said is, I have to let you know something. I have gone to the dark side in computer terms. And he went, no, but yes, that's been quite some time. Anyway, we've got an interesting program for you. First of all, we will discuss our a new week of first readings. We're in the New Testament. We're in 1 Thessalonians. But the second half of the program with our interview, we're going to be talking to a man named Justin. He has a ministry called Empty Chairs. He is gay, and his ministry is helping people who identify as gay and their friends to find a place in the church. And some people are going to hear this, and it's going to put their hair on the back of their neck, because one of the first things we're going to define, which is why people get upset, is how do you define the word gay? You'd be surprised. A lot of people assume gay means, well, they're having sex 24/7, and it's forbidden in the Bible and all the other stuff. No, it isn't. That's not what it means. And we're going to talk about that. And then we're going to go into how we as a church, without changing our teachings, by the way, how we as a church not only can, but must minister to all communities, including the gay community. But we'll get to that in the second half of the program. You can find it after 14 minutes if you want to go right to there right now. But we're going into Thessalonians, and this is St. Paul writing obviously to the people of Thessaloniki. And he is writing to them and talking to them about their great faith. Now, here's one of the things we have to understand, and this is intense. As a matter of fact, if you had any reaction to me talking about what's in the second half of the program, multiply that 1,000 times if you can think of the mission of St. Paul. Because what is he doing? He's teaching people who follow one understanding of the universe, one understanding of the divinity, and to say, no, I want you to come to a new understanding. You realize that leads people to the very core of their being. If you think about it, whether it's the Jews now have to understand that that the Messiah has come, or whether it's the Gentiles to say, turn away from your gods, we're going to teach you about the new God. And in both cases, a new way of life. Remember, in the Jewish community, your devotion to God is defined by following the Jewish law and by staying close to the Jewish dietary laws and everything else, the customary laws and everything else. And now he's coming in and he's saying, no, there's a whole new way of living, and the law no longer applies if you accept Jesus in your life. Think of that. Think of coming to a point where you could, I mean, this is probably the best example, where you can teach someone you can eat pork now. That would be radical, because you go back to the time of Maccabees. People were tortured to death for refusing to eat pork, in being devoted to the law, in being faithful to the law. So you can realize this is an intense change, and you can't blame people for getting upset and for persecuting Paul and Timothy and Silas, because you're teaching them a whole new way of understanding. The best example I can always give is the Copernican revolution. And there were still people. There's a priest running around who I really think the Vatican needs to address. And I may send a letter off to the Vatican about that, who's telling people, no, you have to believe that the sun, that the sun revolves around the earth. It's called geocentrism. You have to believe in geocentrism. What? That doesn't make any sense. And he's teaching this because, this is still fighting the Copernican revolution. But when Copernicus made this intense discovery that it is the earth that revolves around the sun and not the sun around the earth, it was earth-shattering, pardon the pun. It was revolutionary. So much so, he was so terrified of the reaction to it, he didn't announce it until his deathbed. And it was Galileo who ended up being the lightning rod for all the resistance. So Paul is coming in and saying there's a whole new way of understanding the universe, long before, obviously, the Copernican revolution, and obviously he didn't touch on that. And it involves this man who is fully human, fully divine. He is the Son of God. He is part of something we call the Trinity. And that means you no longer must worship Zeus and all the other gods. Those gods don't even exist. You realize that's going to be intensely revolutionary. And in such, there is going to be an intense response, an intense resistance. So you realize their task is pretty, I've used the word too many times, but I'll say it again, intense. And still, he finds this living faith, he hears about, and he writes, this living faith in Thessaloniki. These people who are alive in the faith. And notice what the rule is. The rule has changed from being devoted to the law to being people who express love. Whole different way of living, whole different way of acting. And this is one of the things that changes this. And this is powerful, but you have to understand this is going to the very core of people's existence. Jesus talks about how he has come to set not peace, but division. Why has he come to set division? Because he's going to be teaching, and he's going to lead his disciples to teach something that is challenging to the core of human existence. And this happens every so often, every so many, could even be millennia, but it happens. And this challenges people to their very existence, and therefore, this is going to cause a huge reaction. And it does. But what happens is the people who come to understand and start living this start living a whole new way of understanding the faith, of understanding their reality, and come to experience Christ. Now remember, during this time, people are living what we call today the charismatic gifts. So they're seeing people speak in tongues, they're seeing healings happen, they're seeing other miracles, they're seeing prophecy happen. All this stuff is happening as well, which is part of this. And you can realize those who are on the outside are going, what is going on here? because these are powerful manifestations of the presence of the Holy Spirit so that people may come to believe and may come to learn. And what is the key, as St. Paul talks about this, and you're going to find this. By the way, the reading, it's the first reading for today, 1 Thessalonians 1, 1 through 5. Actually, you can call it 1 through 10. 1 Thessalonians 1, verses 1 through 10. There's a little spot where there's a skipping, but you just go 1 through 10. And he's realizing how much they are living the gospel because the gospel is being experienced, as he says, in the Holy Spirit and power. And remember what Jesus said to the disciples literally just before he ascended into heaven. You will receive power when the Holy Spirit comes upon you. So they're experiencing power. And this is real. So we're putting this whole thing together, and we're understanding this reality of Paul preaching, and that leads us today to ask, what is our faith all about? This is a powerful manifestation of the faith. Are we living a powerful manifestation of the faith today? This is an important question we need to ask. And as we ask that question, we can start to say, what is it we truly believe? How do we believe? How do we know? How do we, and what do we do? And as you know, the thing that I touch on all the time is our focus should not necessarily be living by rules. We shouldn't be focused on living morality first. We should be focusing on this relationship with Christ. Yes, that is Catholic teaching. And being people of prayer. Being prayerful people, going to Mass, staying close to the sacraments so that we may continue living in the Holy Spirit in power. We're going to be back on the other side of the break with our fascinating story with Justin from empty-chairs.org. We'll be right back right after this. You're listening to the Catholic Audio Media Podcast right here on your favorite podcast platform. You can now leave a message for us, which we can air and discuss on this program. Just call 617-297-7452. That's 617-297-7452. 617-297-7452. Feel free to call, leave a comment, a question, or even feedback, and we may play it on the air. I can discuss your comment or question as well, so give that a try. 617-297-7452, 617-297-7452. Don't forget to subscribe to us on Patreon. Patreon.com/Catholic Audio Media. Patreon.com/Catholic Audio Media. Check us out. Check what we have to offer. Previews of upcoming podcasts. Previews of upcoming columns over at catholicaudiomedia.substack.com. Your ability to comment, make suggestions, even make suggestions in upcoming programs. Check us out, patreon.com, Catholic Audio Media. We're back, and we're here about to begin our interview with Justin from empty-chairs.org. You can also find him on YouTube, which I'd highly recommend to you, on Empty Chairs Home, and he's talking to us about the church, helping people who are in the gay community come to the church, Catholic members of the gay community come to the church, and helping people who are ministering to people, all kinds of people in the church, priests and others, how to minister to people in the gay community. Let me give you an example from one of his videos. It's a short video he does, and let me give you an example.
Because when the church talks about this, there's no understanding of sexual orientation. It's just talked in black and white terms about sin and pursuing virtue. And the problem with this is it denies the reality that sexual orientation is about a whole lot more than sex. It's about a fundamental way that people want to give and receive love. For me, as a gay man, how I fundamentally experience connection is with people of the same sex. I have amazing friends who are women, but that fundamental draw in my life is towards men. And the problem is when we're only talking about this in terms of pursuing virtue, in terms of not having sex, at the same time, you're actually denying the reality of those emotions. You are cutting people off from how they're actually feeling. And it really just becomes cloaked conversion therapy. So Catholic Church, if you actually want to do a better job of talking about this, then start talking about the emotional component, recognize the reality of sexual orientation, and actually open the ability to have a conversation about this. Don't reduce people just to the fact that they want to have sex, because we are way more complicated than that.
And there you go. This is a profound teaching, because so many people are preaching from the altar or speaking to people in different ways and are addressing those in the gay community strictly within a context of activity, and not addressing what the church actually teaches. I don't know if you know this, what the church, and you can find what the church actually teaches in the catechism. Just look it up, just Catholic Catechism, or Catechism of the Catholic Church, homosexuality. It'll come up to the section, and read what the church actually teaches. Because this is something that we as Catholics need to teach if we are going to reach out to all people. And this is a group who has been left out. And here's the problem. People complain, you know what they're doing today? And one of the things I want to say to those people is the reason why they may be teaching things or publishing things or whatever that you don't agree with is because you told them you're not wanted here. And so you have no influence. The church has no influence on those who they said to people, you're not wanted here. And this is why I think Justin's ministry is so important. We're going to switch over to my interview with Justin as we speak. The first question I always ask is, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay. Yeah, so my name is Justin, and I am originally from Illinois. I moved out to Colorado about 10 years ago now. I just had been working in the mountains for summer after summer, just kind of waiting for the right opportunity, and had the chance to work for Focus, which is a fellowship of Catholic University students at their headquarters, helping to coordinate short-term international mission trips. But it really, I'd say it was part that, but also part I love the mountains. I love hiking. Obviously the weather's great, but I just love the mountains. So that's kind of like what brought me out here. Although honestly, just the past year or two, a few years ago, I went back to nursing school as a second degree. Before then, I was a philosophy major doing nonprofit stuff. But honestly, like going back to school, being a nurse, I have not been hiking as much as I used to. So I have worked as a nurse for several years. I am taking a little break right now, but I worked initially as a labor and delivery nurse. Then I worked as a physical rehab nurse. So think like hip, knee replacements, just helping people. Get to their inpatients. They would do their therapies, and then I would mostly just help with their pain control. And then the most recent job I had for almost 2 years was actually working as a hospice nurse. So I really did kind of life to death with healthcare. Yeah. I saw many people come into the world. I saw a number of people leave this world, and healthcare has its challenges, but it's been an incredible opportunity to be part of that world.
Wow. Mm-hmm. And of course, my own experience is fairly new, but a hospital chaplain, I can see that. And, you by default would bring your Catholic faith into that.
100%. Yeah. I think it was interesting coming from a missionary background because, I was a missionary on college campuses with Focus for 3 years before I moved out to Colorado. And so there was such an emphasis on reaching out to people and like having conversations that I would like. Flights were always this mixed bag of I should talk to somebody because I'm called to evangelize, but I also want to just sit here and read my book or watch my movie, whatever it is. Yeah. And so when I got to being a nurse for hospice, I think that it was honestly like I don't want to. I've kind of done my job doing outreach to people, so it was a lot more of like bringing that like human side of everything I learned about being a missionary, of asking questions and listening I would pray with patients if I knew that they were Christian, if that's something that they asked. But I think so much of it was, it was almost like taking all that compassion and that empathy that I learned as being a missionary and getting to do that in like a almost purely human context in a sense.
Sure.
And then only kind of weaving religion in if that was part of the patient's, the support system, if that was part of their life. But it was 100% part of what I did.
Wow. And now you have a ministry of kind of letting people know that it's time the church understand that there were gay people in the church.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I came out about 7 years ago now. It's one of those things, I know the dates, but then I always forget because it's like, wait, I said that a year ago. How long ago was it?
Sure.
But yeah, I came out about 7 years ago, and that was, in a sense, I knew that I was gay long before then. But when I was like 24, 25, that was when I really had to come to terms with the fact that I was gay, that this wasn't changing, and it wasn't something that I could change despite all of my best efforts. Mm-hmm. And so it was this looking at what does life look like if I actually accept this part of my life? What does it mean that I could be single for the rest of my life? Actually having to come to terms with those big questions. And through that process, had a lot of really bad interactions with Catholics.
Really?
Kind of a lot of people just kind of wondering, why would I want to talk about this? Why would I say that I'm gay? That's just making it part of my life, a bigger part of my life than it needs to be. And then through that and getting connected with some other, LGBT Catholics through the years and hearing some of the not so great stories that they experienced, it really convinced me that this is going on in our church, but it doesn't have to be that way. That everything that the church teaches about compassion, respect, sensitivity, really should be propelling the church to be far more compassionate, empathetic, listening on this topic, when so often there is division, there's harsh language, and just kind of a lack of compassion that really should be there. So that's what started this, yeah.
And the church commands that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
A lot of people don't understand that, and they're ready. I've read some of the comments on your YouTube page, and let people know. I looked it up as empty dash chairs gay. That's how I found it. Let me see if I can. What?
All right, come with a gay Catholic as he goes to confession.
I get it. There you go.
It's a little scary, especially if you haven't been in a while.
Empty chairs home.
So if it's easier for you to go to a church you don't know, to a priest you don't know, do it. You're not there to check.
There we are. So some of these comments were, and one of the things that I found, remember, I was surrounded by Harvard University.
Oh, yeah.
So, if I'm going to turn around and start preaching against gays in Harvard University, that's not going to work. Mm-hmm. and every place in that area is, there's a fascinating story I like to tell. There was a bar down the street from us. It wasn't a gay bar, but it had a gay flag on the pride flag outside. And, it was, which literally means everyone's welcome. Mm-hmm. Right. Well, eventually the bar closed because the owner was changing whatever. So he closed the bar. He sold it. A new bar comes in about a year later, and people were waiting to see what it was. Now, this was a nice neighborhood bar. The next one, and I guess since I'm on a podcast and not on the radio, I can be a little bit more open what I say. So pardon me for having these words come out of a priest's mouth, but they do. You walk in, the first thing you see is neon lights in the back spelling out horny, and one of the drinks is called blowjob. And I'm like, the other place was a friendly neighborhood bar. This is not. Mm-hmm. And I went there once. I never went back.
Yeah.
Because it was like so disappointing, yet people wouldn't have gone to that bar because of the flag.
Yeah.
And it reflects that whole misunderstanding that I see. Is it fair to say that when people hear the word gay, they understand one term and the word actually means something completely different?
Yeah, and I do think, I'm I'm 33, so I'll recognize there's a limited perspective to that. From what I've heard from people and how people respond, it seems like there has been some of a cultural shift in how the term gay is used. I know so many people, whether they agree 100% with the church's teaching or disagree 100% with the church's teaching, who will still use the term gay. And so I think that so often when I use the term, especially on social media, it's easy for people to like jump in the comments and say something. It's like, what's your sex life like? Like, are you having sex? Are you not?
Exactly, yes.
And I think like, you're just like, Catholics, and I don't know what people's faith is who are in the comments necessarily. But it's, Catholics say, hey, we don't want to reduce you to your sexuality. It's like, okay, well then why then is the first thing that comes to your mind when I'm gay is to immediately jump to a question about sex? And I think that there needs to be this understanding, and something that was like this, eye-opening moment when I was in therapy one day. My therapist was like, just because you use the term gay, that talks about how you experience intimacy. Like that's how you, and not even like sexual intimacy, that's how you experience connection with people. And that there's just a preference for experiencing closeness with men that you have. Like that's what the term means first and foremost. And I think we see for so many people now that is how the term is used. This describes my experience, this describes my perspective, and that we can't jump to any conclusions about how someone's living just because of, that single term of like lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender. It's a way to quickly describe one's experience in the world. It doesn't necessarily say what someone's actions are like.
And this seems to be the thing I see consistently, that whole issue that there are people that minute you hear the term gay, that means, oh, they're having sex 24/7. Mm-hmm. And the reality is that's not what the term means.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I mean, there's as much diversity in the LGBT community as there is in the straight community. You've got your people who are in bed by 9 o'clock, on Friday, and you've got people who enjoy going out on Friday night and partying, and you've got your hookup culture in the gay community, just like you've got hookup culture in the straight community.
We're going to talk more tomorrow. We're going to begin our program with continuing with Paul's first letter to the Thessalonians. And then we're going to continue in the second half with our discussion with Justin. Remember his website, empty-chairs.org. And don't forget, Empty Chairs Home is his YouTube page. Check them out, and especially if you have someone who and I've dealt with these people in parishes, parents who say to me, I am very concerned about my gay son or daughter who will not come to church because of the way the church teaches on homosexuality, and that come to find out they're learning from people who are not teaching what the church actually teaches, but this very negative version. We'll be back tomorrow then. Have yourself a blessed day. Remember, we're here every single Monday through Friday on your favorite podcast platform. The program drops at midnight, but you can also see or hear previews of the program over at patreon.com/Catholic Audio Media. That's patreon.com/Catholic Audio Media. In the meantime, as we always say, have yourself a blessed day, and we will see you tomorrow. You can now leave a message for us, which we can air and discuss on this program. Just call 617-297-7452. That's 617-297-7452. 617-297-7452. Feel free to call, leave a comment, a question, or even feedback, and we may play it on the air. I can discuss your comment or question as well, so give that a try. 617-297-7452, 617-297-7452. Don't forget to subscribe to us on Patreon. Patreon.com/Catholic Audio Media. Patreon.com/Catholic Audio Media. Check us out. Check what we have to offer. Previews of upcoming podcasts. previews of upcoming columns over at catholicaudiomedia.substack.com, your ability to comment, make suggestions, even make suggestions in upcoming programs. Check us out, patreon.com, Catholic Audio Media.